welcome back to the second part of the loot feature tutorial. As you might have remembered, we talked about the Stellar Blade loot chest system and how she interact with the chest as well as the items on the ground. Now if you take a look at it, we see that she can hold R2 to open the chest, so I'm guessing there's a value between 0 and 1, and if it reaches 1, then the chest will open. But say midway, if you release the button, it will go back to the 0 state. And once the chest does open, get these cool looking items popping out of the chest and then landing on the ground. And the prompt says also you can hold R2 to continuously acquire these items. So the cool thing about this is you can keep holding R2 even after the chest is open. So once the items actually drop on the ground, it seems that they have sort of a delay or wait timer until they become interactable. But once that delay disappears, you are able to then pick up those items and acquire them, all the while still holding R2. So I've never actually released that button yet.
Think there's anything useful?
Well, it's Legion, so compatibility shouldn't be an
Alright, pretty cool. Let's go work on our interaction gameplay ability a bit more to get the ground up and running. Before we dive deeper into the GA Interact, I want to showcase a bit more on how the setup will be done. So as I said before, this is mainly a Stellar Blade reference, and if you played the game, you would also feel a similarity between this image and the game interactions of Stellar Blade, where, so as the player, the green cube, and then the orange box right in front of the player facing forward is where you mostly interact with interactables in the world. It could be a door, it could be a chest, it could be a puzzle. So anything that needs to be interacted with needs to be always in front of the player. Now, I'm unsure yet if it's just a line trace that spews out in front of the player, or if it actually is a large box. But it's pretty easy to swap the box with the line trace. For this purpose, I'm just gonna go for the box trace. If you'd like, you could stick with the line trace. It's up to you, really. And for the pickups, when you hold R2 in the game, from what I can see, it looks to be some sort of like a box or sphere, but I believe a sphere would make more sense. We have a radius and then everything within that just gets picked up one after another. All right, so back in the editor, what we need to do is to head back into your plugins folder, the Game Future plugin, and into your gameplay ability that we created, the GA Interact. As you can see, I've fiddled a bit with it, so it might be different for you. What you might have, if you followed the last tutorial, is you might have had the ability trigger here, and then you had the interact tag applied here. But what we want to do is to only use the activate ability event. We don't really need the activate ability from event. So I'll go ahead and delete that. And in the class defaults, I will also delete the ability interact ability trigger. I'll compile and save that. And inside here, we do not need the print string. I will keep this empty for now. Let's fix up the other parts as well. So back in the GFI core, we can go back to the ability set data asset, and we can remove the event tags from this list because we won't be using the activate ability from event anymore. So instead, we'll put it underneath the granted gameplay abilities within the input tag so that we can use the event activate ability instead. We can go ahead and close ability set, and then we can go into the inputs and the IMC. And here, you remember I talked about switching from press to hold and release. So we'll do that right now. And what this will allow us to do is to actually utilize the wait input press and the wait input release. Now, what I'll do here is to connect the input press here and set it as already pressed, because as soon as we activate, we have already pressed it. And on the following, we wait for the input release. For the input press, we don't really want to end the ability here. So when pressed, we want to print a string and call it pressed. And we can leave the color as is, but for the wait input release, when we release the interaction button, we want to type released and change the color to something visible, like orange should be okay. And let's end the ability on the release. So we only end it when we release the button. Now, there will be an issue. You might have seen it if you already tested this layout, is that when you go and play, it doesn't register the press and release accurately. So if you do it slowly, if you press E and keep holding E, and then you release it, it will release. But the problem with this is that if you spam it, it will get stuck. So now if I spam E, it will only go through pressed and never release. And that's an issue. So how to fix this is essentially going back to the IMC and lowering the threshold. So we can go all the way down to 0.01 both. And now it should act how we actually want it. So if we hold E and then we release, it's released. And now if we spam it, it also works. So it doesn't get stuck anymore. Great. Okay, so before we actually start expanding on the GA Interact, what we should do is essentially going back here on the activate ability, and then we need to get avatar actor info, and this will allow us to cast to our character. Now we don't really want to cast to a specific character. We want to cast the parent character to keep it as modular as possible. So we could type here character. I will cast to the character class. And you could see, for example, if we go into the content, third person blueprints, the third person character inherits from the character class. And if we open up LCT character, we can see that it's of type character. So now that we know that the cast to character is actually the parent for all other Unreal characters, such as the third person, variant combat, and so on, it will make this gameplay ability a bit more modular. But we can go a step further than that, because currently we're just granting this ability to the third person character. So we could go back into plugins, GFAC core, and then into the game feature data asset. and let's put it to registered. So instead of, like, usually you'd have the third person character applied here, as well as here, third person character. Instead of the third person now, you just go back to the character, so the parent of the character. Works just as good if we don't really need anything specific from the character, from the custom character that we have created. So if we just need the location, some basic information, the parent character works a lot better in our case. But say your character, or like, let's say if your custom character has variables or functions you want to access, but the parent character that Unreal provides does not have those functions or variables, then in that case it would be better to, like, choose your third person character in this case. But a good thing to note, if you want to keep it as modular as possible, you could go to, as an example, if you go to the third person, we can say that the third person is our parent character. So we'll just make a basic character class and name it third person character. And then from the third person, we'll make new child blueprint classes. And then that child blueprint class will be your playable character. And perhaps now the parent third person character owns all the functions and variables that are needed for your child player class to function. And that way you can kind of keep it still modular, that you attach the components to the system parent character, and all the child characters from the parent custom character will inherit game feature functions as well. So if we go into the third person character, this is the only place we actually define a receiver, and the child classes of the third person would not require another add receiver in their event begin play. So back in the GA Interact, what I usually like to do when I cast to the character, I usually just promote the character. Let's rename it to just character, compile and save that. And then we will drag the character in as get, and then we'll right click it, and all the way down you can see convert to validator get. This essentially acts similar to the is valid node, this one, but with one less step. So we don't really need to put an is valid node. We can just keep using the character variable. And what I find useful in this case is I can drag from activate ability to the get validator, and from is valid. So if the character is valid, we can hook it straight to the wait input press. And if it's not valid, then we cast to character. And from character, once we've casted, we've set the character, it's a success. We can just make it a bit more neat. We can double click the execution, and then we can hook it up here. And let's say if this does eventually fail somehow, then we need to end the ability to not allow it to get stuck anywhere. So how this will work is that if you start the game for the first time and you use the ability, it will cast only once. And all other times you use the ability, it will not cast as long as the player is still valid. So it will only do one initial cast and then just go from the first pin from the is valid. And of course, if it's not valid for some reason, it will try to cast again. And if it's not able to cast at all, we will end the ability. So from this point, we can go to the wait input press and let's create two new functions. For the first function, let's call it box interaction rate. And for the other one, call it sphere pickup trace. Now going back to the event graph, we can the box interaction will be used then to interact with any interactables such as chests, doors, and so on. And the sphere pickup trace will just be there to pick up any loot. So let's open up the box interaction trace. This will only be for the interactables. So anything you can think of having an interaction prompt like hold or press, this is the trace that will handle those encounters. So what we could do is we can drag off and we can search for box trace for leave objects. And then in here, we can drag off and say make. Keep this as a world static. I'll get to why we're going to change it later. Okay, so we can actually move this to the right quite a bit. Maybe this is enough. I'll put the make array right under it. And for now, we can make a macro. And let's call it calculate trace. And within the macro calculate box trace, let's drag off the character and copy the character variable 4 times. And then from character, what we want is the get actor location, get the location of the character, and then get actor forward vector to get the forward vector of the character. We want to make a forward offset first, so we'll say forward vector times, and then right click the empty vector field and scroll down and change it to float double precision. We could say to offset it by 50, and let's add. It's also very important to disconnect it and add it to the bottom section. And for the base point, the get actor location, we can just drag that into here. And then we can break the vector. let's also comment. Call this forward offset. Always like to color my comments black. Do whatever you like. And let's call this base point. Like that. Let's move the output a bit backwards, the inputs a bit to the left. And now we need to get another character variable and search for capsule component. And from the capsule component, we can search for half height. And then from the half height, we can calculate the feet from the z-axis, so straight down. What we essentially need to do here is just to drag off the z from what we calculated earlier, subtract, and place the capsule half height to it. And now let's drag off the break vector to make it a bit more clean, and let's say make vector. So we store that in the vector. And we can drag off from the make vector into the outputs and call that start location. And for the end location, we can pretty much do the same. So we can copy and paste it right under. Let's see, this should be pretty okay. Let's make it in line, and then we can change this capsule component comment to head z. So we're calculating to the head, and we can delete the subtract, and we can replace it with a add, and then into the make vector z input, and then for the output we return it here to the output node, and we can call that end location. And the last one is pretty straightforward. We can get from the character get rotation, get actor rotation, and drag off the get actor rotation into the output as well, and call that rotation. Let's make it a bit more neat. Okay, I think that's it for now. We can go back into the interaction box trace and place the macro into it. You can, of course, drag and drop, but you can also search for it to also place it within the interaction box trace function. Now we can get the start location into the start location, the end into the end, and then the rotation into orientation. And the half size, I believe, if I remember correctly, if you put 25 in each of these fields, you get a box of 50. So it essentially just doubles it, if I remember correctly. So let's save and test. was wondering why it didn't work, but we need to, from the draw debug type, just need to put for duration instead. And for the duration, we can set it to 5 for now, just to make it more visible for us. So it's pretty good. And then if we rotate the character, it rotates with the character. So no matter where the character is facing, it will always spawn in front of the character. So now that's done. I just realized I made a mistake because I'm using the multi-box trace for objects. We actually just want the box trace for objects, so not the multi one. So let's delete that. And put the start and end and the rotation and the same path lies here. Let's connect it. And also connect the object type. For the out hit, we can break it. We only want the hit actor for now, so we can drag off the box trace for objects and we can search for return. Why return is important is mostly because we want the hit actors to be visible on the output. So if we drag in the hit actor, we can now access it from the output. Okay, so this is it for the box trace for objects. Let's place it a bit closer. Save, and then event graph, and for the pickup sphere trace, and the and for the pickup sphere trace, it's a lot easier actually. We can just go and search for sphere trace by sphere trace for objects, and then we can just get the character here, get the get actor rotation. We can put that in the start and end, and then we can put the radius as 200. And let's make a make array for object types and keep it as world static. The draw debug type, put it for duration, and the seconds is 5, which is okay now for testing. Same mistake here. I accidentally put the multisphere. We don't want that. Let's fix that real quickly. Sphere trace. Sphere trace. Sphere trace for objects. Let's do the same. Get actor location, start and end, radius 200, and the object types into the make array. And the same thing we did for the interaction box trace, we can do it for the sphere trace as well. So we'll break from the out hit. We get the hit actor, and we can type return. Oh, sorry. We'll drag from the sphere trace, and we'll search for return. We'll place the hit actors into here. Okay, so let's check how it looks. The sphere trace for objects. Oh, okay, draw debug type for duration. Under maybe, yeah, the interaction box as well is missing, so draw debug type for duration as well. Okay, so now if I press, I get this cool trace going on. So one for the interaction prompts and then one for the pickups. Now there is one more step to do. So for now, we are looking for object types world static, but we really only need to look for two things: the world interactables and the pickups. So for the box trace for objects, what we can do is we can go into project settings. We can scroll down until we find collision under engine. And in here, we can create a new object channel, and let's call it interactable collision. Default response to block all. And a new channel, and let's call it pick up collision. Accept. And then in the presets, we can add as well two new channels. We can call the first one interactable. Collision enabled query and physics. We can set to ignore all, or actually block all, but we want the camera to overlap. We want the vehicle and the destruction to be ignored. And let's accept. Well, you can also, for accept, you can write a short description. Interactable actors, and let's press accept. Oh, I also forgot, if we edit it, we can also choose the object type that we just created, so the interactable collision. Let's accept that again. Let's create a new one and call it pick up. And for the description, let's call it pick up actors. And for the object type, let's put it as pick up collision. Collision enabled. We'll also pick the collision enabled query and physics, and the same, or a bit different actually. We can put this to overlap all. We can block the visibility. We can block the world static and the dynamic. We can overlap with the pawn and physics body. We can ignore vehicle and destruction. We can block the soft collision and the interactable collision, and we can overlap with other pickup collisions. I thought I made a description already, but I guess not. We can also always just edit it, and we can say pick up actors, accept, and that should be pretty good. We can go back to GA interact, and within the interaction box trace, we can now change the make array from world static to okay, it's not registered yet. Maybe delete it and make a new make array. Okay. Now we can choose the interactable collision. And for the pickup sphere trace, we can choose the pick up collision. And let's see now. Yeah, so now when you press, everything is pretty much red, so we're not really hitting the object type we want, which is good, so we don't overlap with the character and nothing in the world except for anything that might be a interactable or pickup actor. So what we can do now is go into plugins, GFI Core, GFI Core again, and then here we can make a new folder and call it Blueprint. Within Blueprints, we can make two new folders. Let's call one for pickups and one for the test. And let's create a new Blueprint class of type actor. I will call it the pickup. You could also call this collectible if you want, but I'll stick with pickup. Now if we open up pickup and add a sphere, let's scale it down to something like 0.15. And let's add a sphere collision and unattach it so that it doesn't parent with the sphere. Let's scale it down maybe half, so 16. Yeah, also, so if you press the sphere collision and under details, you can find the shape field and the sphere radius, so you can change that to the size that you want. I'll go with 16, I believe, or yeah, I think 16 should be good enough. And then let's go and change the sphere collision from overlap all dynamics to the one we created, pickup, because it's a pickupable. We don't no. And now we don't really need to make any modifications to the collision response or object types because we've already set that. So now we can also go ahead and rename this one to pick up collision. And this one to SM pick up, static mesh pickup. And we can make the collision the scene root. We can close out of the pickup, and if we go to the BP pickup, place it, you'll see that we can't really place it because this map currently is within the content. So one thing with the game feature is that you need to create a new map, and within this map you're able to place these objects. So what I've gone ahead and done, I've basically gone into the third person folder and copied the third person level. I went into the GFI core, and then beside the game feature data asset, I've made a new folder called maps, and then within maps, that's where the third person level is located. So if I load up this map instead, you can see that I already have a pickup placed in here, but I can also deleted. Go into plugins, blueprints, pickups, and place the pickup here. And now if we press play, we see that it's still red. But if we get closer to the actual pickup and press E, see that the sphere is green, but the box collision is red, because we've said previously that we only want the sphere to interact with the pickups and not the box collision. Let's go ahead and do the same for the chest, interactable chest. We'll just also create a new blueprint class of type actor and call it b underscore loot chest. And within here, we could just add a box, a cube, and let's scale it down by half the size, 0.5. Let's scale these. Let's also scale the sides to, not that, the X scale to 1. And let's also add a box collision. Attach it from the cube, and let's scale it. Desire it to be. You could keep this like so. That. Maybe a bit wider, like this. Covers the entire static mesh. And we can attach the static mesh to the box collision and the box as the scene root. Compile and save. And for the box collision, we could scroll down into overlap all dynamics with the collision presets and change that to the interactable. We could also simulate generate hit events. That could be pretty handy down the line, actually. Let's go back into the pickups and also check the simulate generate hit events for it. Okay, and lastly, let's also clean up a bit. So we say SM loot chest static mesh loot chest, and for the static mesh, actually, we could also put it as no collision. This also depends if you want the character to climb up on the chest. I believe if we go into the box collision, yes, so we have the pawn as block. We could go back into the project settings and go into collision. And then for the interactable, we can press edit, and then we can overlap the character instead of blocking it. I'll save the chest. So now the collision shouldn't block the player, but the loot chest, however, put it as default block out dynamics, but we can, I guess that's all right for now. Prefer the chest to block the player. You can keep it as is. If not, you can make it custom, and then you can either overlap the player or completely ignore. It's up to you. But I think I'll keep it as default, but I'll ignore the camera so it doesn't clip, or it doesn't so it doesn't give a weird effect when the camera hovers around the chest. And I guess the same setup should be for the pickups, where the collision overlaps with the character, but the static mesh should be custom. We should, similar to the chest, ignore the camera and overlap with the pawn and physics body. Ignore any vehicles and destructibles. And I think that should be enough. Well, we could also this one here as well. Overlap with the collisions, or overlap with the pickup collisions. Okay, so let's also place the chest into the level. I'll press End key to make it fall to the ground. Now if we press play, we can go to the loot chest. I just realized it's a bit small, but we'll fix that later. So if we press E, we see that we can interact with the loot chest, with the box trace, but the sphere trace completely ignores it. Now based on the collision presets as well, we are blocked by the chest, but we can also jump on top of it. If you're wondering why the character is hovering, I believe because the feet IK also looks for visibility, so we can go into interactable. We can put the visibility as, let's try overlapping. Yeah, so now it works pretty good. The IK does what the IK needs to do. But by that sense, we can also go into project settings again and fix that for the collision pickups. We'll edit the pickup and we'll put visibility as overlap. So now our feet should go on the cube instead of the sphere collision that it has. Just showcase again, so we can also check the sphere overlaps with the pickup and the box collision does not. And the same where here the box interact with the chest but not the sphere collision. What if we have both of them beside each other? Both of them are green, so it finds the cube and also the chest. But let's say if I look towards the pickup, it doesn't find the chest because we're not really looking at the chest. So now it does interact with the chest. Okay, so now back into the GA Interact. What we're going to do is to calculate the time for how long we have held the press button. So you might have seen that the input press has the time waited and the time held. However, those are not hooked up, so they will always return 0. So it's not super effective to utilize them for this setup, unfortunately. But we could do is to unhook interaction box trace and the pickup trace and put them somewhere down here. And now on the on pressed, what we need to do is to create a new variable and call it hold time, hold start time. And set it. And now what we're going to do is to basically figure out how long we are holding press by the absolute clock. So going to get the get time seconds and set the hold start time. And afterwards we can go and set timer by event. We can create event here and also on the return value by the set timer by event, we can promote it to a variable and call it something like as it is called timer handle, and then drag off the timer handle variable we just created. Let's get timer handle and then let's search for clear and choose the clear and invalidate timer by handle. So every time we release, we will cancel the timer event. So let's hook this one up to the end ability. Like so. And for the set timer by event, we want it to fire every 0.05 seconds. We'll keep it as looping. For the event, we can create a custom event and call it time held or while rest event. We can search for while pressed, save, and then from here we can create a new variable and call it hold time. And from the hold time, we'll drag it in and we'll set it. We'll also get the hold start time we just created and also drag in the character. From the character, we'll get game time since creation. One thing to note, if you use the get time since creation, it will respect any world time dilations you may have, so like slow motion effects, for example. However, if you get the get real time in seconds, I believe this one ignores the slow motion effects or the time dilation effects. So for that reason, I will stick with the time in seconds. Now what we can do is to subtract. We can subtract the hold start time and the get game time since creation and place it within the hold time. And let's put this one in here. So we can also check if we print string and then we hook the hold time to the print string. And we give it a key, let's say hold time. And now we can check the seconds as well. So how much time are we pressing? So if I press play and I hold for 1 second, so 1001, I can do that again. 1001, maybe a bit too fast. 1001. So it is pretty accurate. So 1001, 1002. We get pretty much the time held that we need. We could also, just for fun of it, go into project settings. We can go into frame or search for frame, and then we use fixed frame rate. So maybe we use 30 frame rates. And then we try again. 1001, 1001, 1001, 1002. It's also pretty accurate. Let's say maybe we want even slower. Let's go with 20 FPS. 1001, and then 1001, 1002. It also acts pretty accurate. So this way we don't really need to worry about different frame rates. At least hopefully that's the plan. So even if you drop a lot of frames, it should still act the way it should. Okay, so now that we have this set up, we could also check the stat performances. So press play here. Now how you can get these up as well is if you press stat unit, you get these unit numbers, and if you press or if you type stat FPS, you can show the frame rate. But now let's just check if there are any major spikes with this. Okay, so let's hook these traces also and see difference. I could see that the draw calls and the game milliseconds spike up by 2 milliseconds. Almost 2 milliseconds. It goes from upper 4, from 5 to 6 milliseconds. And the input, not too much, I'd say. Even if I run around and I hold it, still relatively low. I think this is pretty okay to work with. It's not too heavy, and it only ever traces when we hold the input press. Now, since the project doesn't have the fancy Lyra gameplay message subsystem, there is a workaround we can do to actually send the hold time to the actor we are interacting with. By that, we could go into the interaction box trace. We could say set gameplay. So from the interaction box trace, we'll drag off the hit actor and type gameplay. Scroll up, and then we can check which one possibly take. We have this, send gameplay event to actor. Let's see if there's anything else. Doesn't seem like it, so we'll use this node now. And then the event tag, we could say this is not an ability. We could say, or we don't even need to say, we could create a new one, and let's call it gameplay message. Let's add, oh, sorry. In the source, also select the default gameplay tags ini, add new tag, and then within the gameplay message, we can add a sub tag. So this is basically a workaround because we don't have the Lyra subsystem. I mean, you could create a subsystem on your own, but for this tutorial, it is already pretty long, so I'm just gonna work with the workaround for now. So gameplay message, and then we could say hold time. Or a bit better, we could also delete that and say gameplay message interact, and then let's expand the gameplay message, and then under interact we'll add a new subtag interact, and here we can say hold time. And now we can select the hold time, and for the payload we can make gameplay event data. So what we could send here is let's see, so we can get the character. The target is what we're interacting with. And the character, we don't really need to send information to the actor about the character. What we could do, take the hold time and place it within the event magnitude. I think that should be good. We could also the gameplay message as well for the same thing as we did with the send gameplay event to actor. So gameplay message interact hold time. Let's see if we can actually get any information from this setup. I'll disconnect the print string so that we can look inside the chest actor. Go back to the blueprints folder within the game feature plugin, and then the chest, blue chest. What we need to do is we need to add a gameplay, no, a ability system component. And then from the ability system, we could also say event begin play. Let's see what the send gameplay event to actor. Wait gameplay event to actor. So we can put the target to stealth. Note that into begin play. The event tag, we can choose the same one we created the whole time. And then on the payload, we can break the payload. And we can check the event magnitude. So event received, we print a string, and then on the string, check the value. Let's see what we put here. Print string duration 2 seconds. 5. I'll put it 0. I've put it to 0.05 just to keep it in line with the timer by event. And then let's put a key here. Just hold time. File and save. See if the actor receives anything. If we wrong level, let's see. GFI core maps third person. Okay. So when we hold E, we don't see anything. If we go close to the test, 1001, that's pretty good. We're now actually getting the timer when we interact with the box. If we're not interacting, we don't get the timer, which is pretty cool. And even if we spam it, it doesn't really get stuck, so it always resets, which is perfect. So that's a cool workaround we just did. You can delete the character, but if you really do want the character reference, you can always put it in the instigator, and that way you would have the target. The target would be this actor itself, and then the instigator would be the player. Okay, so now that we have that done, we could also place a UI widget on the chest. So heading back to the game feature plugin, the GFI core, we can make a new folder here and call it widgets. And then within here, we can search for widget, and we could choose the widget blueprint. Now there are a couple of widgets we can choose from, but just a common user widget is enough. I will call it W underscore interact. Let's open it up, and within the widget, actually before we continue, we're going to use this cool free assets called Easy Input Prompts by Nerui, which essentially would provide us a bunch of icons to play with. That would be pretty handy, especially for the old input keys. We'll post a link to this asset in the description. Feel free to check it out, test it out on your own, or use your own custom icons. But I'm going to use this asset primarily just for the icons. So add it to my library, and then in my launcher, I'll search for easy input. Just gotta refresh. There you go. So easy input prompts, and we can add it to our project. But before I do that, I'm going to close my project. Yes, save. And now once that's out of the way, we can add the easy prompt into LCT, add to project. Cool. Okay, so let's head back into the project real quick. Right. So I believe within content, we should have easy inputs. And we have a quick readme here. We have the graphics content. And then we have the mouse and keyboard. And here we have a bunch of cool icons to work with. Now I'm unsure exactly where the hold button was actually. So I'm just gonna, here it is. The progress background. Okay. So let's check the demo content. Or yeah, demo content, demo hot. This is the old Smash keys. Let's see how it is set up. Tab key, hold key, Smash key. So what we want is the hold key here. Let's right click and edit widget blueprint. And here we have it. So what it is using is a grid panel, scale box, overlay, input, progress indication, which is really cool. And then the key icon. I guess this is the one we can swap out later on. And then the Smash icon indicator. I believe this is hidden. Visibility collapsed. Yes, so this is not visible. And we have the text block. If you want to add text to the side, I'm not gonna use that. However, I will copy all the other parts because that's going to be really handy. Let's close the demo. Let's go back into plugins and into the GFI core. Within the widgets. Now, this plugin doesn't actually contain the marketplace assets, but you can still reference it like so. the delete the text box. The overlay is fine. Grid. Let's see if we can fix this somehow. I guess that's pretty good. I think we can double check within the content, easy inputs, demo content, demo HUD, and then do it again. Let's just dock this for reference. It has a different displayer. I guess that's fine. Don't really. Scale to fit. Yeah. Work for this for now. So just dragging it to fit the size as close as possible. And then the Smash interaction, we can check the visibility. It is collapsed, but we could make it visible. Compile and save. And now if we go to key, we can search for E. Got T keyboard E. Here we have it. Now the size changed again. Unlucky. Let's just keep it like so. Scale to fit. Okay. So let's just scale it like so. And then we'll go into the we can also check the input progress indication and see how it looks. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's go back to third person, into the third person level, and also back into the game feature plugin. We'll go into the blueprints folder, into the chest, loot chest, and here what we could do is add, well, firstly, it would be nice if we scaled it a bit bigger, because currently if we play, also need to change the level. So currently it's a bit too small, let's say, so the metrics are not that good. we needed to be roughly at the midpoint of the player height, like right below the stomach. So let's scale this up a bit. No, maybe it's too big. Five. And let us increase the size to times 2. Times 2 on the box collision. And let's see how big it is now. I guess a bit okay. It's still a bit too large. So instead of doing it times 2, we could time it to 1.5. And we could say the collision box should be just 2.6, or a more even number, 2.5. Should be good. Let's lock that. Let's see the okay. Let's save. Okay. That was too small. So let's time it by 0.5 again. Oh no, wait. My mistake. It was actually pretty good. Maybe it... Yeah, I mean, the way it looks for this player controller or this character, the metrics is pretty fine. The chest looks okay. If you consider the size of the character and the size of the chest, it looks pretty realistic. And it looks pretty realistic in a game sense. We could use that. We could use these metrics for now. Let's save that. And let's add a 3D or widget. A 3D widget. This is okay. So this is primarily for mouse clicks. We don't need that. We'll just use a regular 3D widget, and we'd say W underscore interaction, or hold button, actually. Hold button. And for the widget, scroll down a bit. Right, so for the widget, while selecting it, you can scroll down until you find the user interface. And within here, we have the widget class. We can select our W underscore interact widget we just created. Now we need to, it's a bit off-centered, let's say. You see, like that. We'll fix that up a bit. Let's see. Let's do this instead. We'll cover the entire screen. Okay, so one way I got it to work, to get it centered to the pivot, was to select the grid panel and add two column fields, one at 0 and one at 1000, and keep the row field to 1. And all we need to do now is just to scale down a bit. We could take or 0.5. I think that's pretty good. Let's rotate it by 90, then bring it here. You could also rotate the chest so it's facing the player. Let's see. This is how it looks. Let's close it. And let's give it another color than white so it's more visible. Because everything is too white in the level. We'll go back into the widget, and for the key, we'll just put bluish color. For the progress bar, we could give it a orange-ish color. And for the indication, we can keep blue. Okay, that should be pretty good. So now if we look at it, you can see the button. And the most important part is that we go into the event graph now. I think what we could do is actually go into the interactable widget here and create a custom event. And we'll say, call this hold on progress. And we'll put a input here of type float and call it hold duration. And then we'll get the, input progress indication, the input progress indicator. And we'll set percent to whatever the hold duration is. And now if we go back to the chest, so what we need to do to be able to call the functions we made, we need to drag off of begin play and get the hold button, and then we get the widget object, get user widget object. And then from here, we will cast to the widget we made. So it's cast to W interact, and then promote to variable. And then from here, we could then drag it into wait gameplay event to actor. So now that we've done that, we can drag the winteract reference and then look for the event we made, the hold button progress. And in here, we can just put the hold duration. Well, actually, before that, we need to clamp it. So we need to clamp, load, and we need to say the minimum 0 and the maximum is 1, because that is what the progress bar can take. So from 0 to 1. And now once this is done, we can try it out and see for ourselves how it looks. So it seems that doesn't really show any progress. So let's see what's wrong here. Okay, after some testing and debugging, I found that yes, it does work fine. The only problem is that the interact, the progress bar, we have it on the visibility as collapsed. So let's just put visible here. And within the style and the fill image, we have the tint over here with the alpha at 0.2. So if you make it 1, then it should be more visible in game. There you go. So let's 50% back to 0. And now it should work. Cool. So this is it for this tutorial. It became rather long, but for the next tutorial, we're gonna try to finalize the chest interaction as well as the pickup interaction.